Hey guys, Debo here, and here to bring you guys another Overwatch video. And I guess the main topic we're going to be talking today is going to be talking about how common sense is uncommon. If you guys check my other videos, I had some other ones I set up talking about being accountable for yourself, not being that guy. And like I said, these are just a slew of videos before we start getting into personalized guides for each individual hero, because we want to make sure that, or at least I do, try to spread the message about how to get your mind right if you want to be a team player, win more games, be a team player overall for ranked and competitive, because I mean that's the ultimate goal, and how to look at things in a perspective if you're playing by yourself predominantly or you're running small groups. So what do I mean by common sense is uncommon? Well, I mean, just like in real life, when people do certain things and you would expect them to know better and then people still do it anyway, that's an example of common sense being uncommon. Okay, Debo, well, how does it relate to Overwatch? Let me give you guys a good example. The other day I was inside of the Battle.net forums, and some guy was basically claiming, or one of the posters was claiming, that Attack Torb is very good, has a high win % rate, and that it's really effective, and he was able to use it quite well on King of the Hill maps and push the payload and things of that nature. He also claimed that he was a high rank, and that it was, I don't understand why people get so biased towards it. And, I could see that working. I can definitely see Attack Torb being in some situations on certain maps, especially on the map I'm playing right here at Winston. I mean, on this map, it's very useful to play Attack Torb if you're putting turrets on the platform and things, what have you not. But for the most part, I can see where he's coming from, but in a competitive aspect, when you're on a group or a team, you could do Attack Torb, but they usually switch after a certain amount of a certain point. But just in general, the easier option or the more common sense thing to do, if you really wanted to try that type of setup, I know you guys seen it a lot, when people get a turret up there, whether it's Bastion or Torbjorn's turret, it's usually a lot better just to simply take the easier option out and just take, the Bastion. He's a mobile turret, he can control, he can get in and get out, he can sit up on that turret, have a shield by Reinhardt, and also have a Mercy healing him, and they can just sit there and push the payload, or, maybe push on assault or something like that. But, a lot of people were just kind of, I don't want to say mindlessly defending it, or just basically saying that, yeah, I agree with it, or, yeah, people shouldn't tell you what you can and can't do. And the big thing, what you have to realize is that when you're online and you're dealing with random people that you don't know and you don't play with on a regular basis, realistically, the most thing that makes the most sense to do is try to play the most standard, straightforward things that most people kind of know and that can play off of. Unless you're running, like I said, like a 3-man pre-made, 2-man pre-made, 4, 5, 6, where you have a definitive plan to do this and you have people to back you up. You got to be very careful, because a lot of people are going to probably see what you're doing as trolling or just not trying to play for the team, and that kind of demoralizes things, and then that overall that'll make people not maybe try their hardest, or basically just say, well, I got to troll my team, so I really don't care. It's unfortunate, but I mean that's just realistically what happens. And the whole point I'm just trying to make is that, yeah, in certain situations you could play with the Torbjorn on attack and do certain things like that, play a Genji on defense. Ooh, excuse me. But for the most part, usually just taking the simpler option is what you want to do. The thing that makes more sense. Bastion on the payload, that makes a lot more sense to me, and a lot of people are used to seeing it and they know how to play around it, and you can communicate that a little bit, a couple messages, and people will rally behind you on the payload, and you can push the payload pretty well, or even running it on Assault or running it on King of the Hill maps. But for Torbjorn, and I know people want to do certain things like that, you got to be really, really sure in what you're doing, and you got to think, is this worth me playing? Is this the best option for the team? Do I know these people? Will they support me? Will they understand the play that I'm making? Or maybe I should just pick a hero that can better fulfill the situation right now, and at least just be something more reliable, like a Winston or a Reinhardt or a Mai, or a Lucio if you need a healer, and something along those lines. And that would be the best option, especially like I said, when you're playing by yourself, or you're queuing competitive by yourself, or doing things along those lines. You can't expect much from your team. I'm not saying that every single game. I think most players that play competitive actually do want to play competitively. They do want to win. or even in quick play. I think for the most part, people do want to try to win, and you can make a lot of, I don't want to say judgments. You could tell a lot about people based on what their picks are on attack or defense and stuff like that. What heroes they choose and what their overall attitude is and what they're trying to do. But you just got to be responsible for yourself. You got to realize that, how do the best way I put this? You got to realize that if you're treating yourself, or you're assuming the most common sense things about things, or you're just looking at the situations about what's the most best thing for the team to do and not trying to overcomplicate it, that's sometimes not going to come around to everybody else. And like I said, that's why I make videos like this, just to get kind of players and minds in the right way. Usually the simpler option is the better option. It is okay to play certain things, like I've seen a Hanzo on attack, I've seen a Hanzo on defense, I've seen Genji's on defense, I've seen Genji's on attack, of course. He's more of an attack-oriented character. Thing about Genji and Hanzo, they really shine when you're really proficient with them. I mean, now technically, any character can be very good if you're proficient with them. But certain characters, if you're really good, you can pretty much hard carry a game or make a really big impact where things actually can go towards the favor of your team. Couple examples of that is like a good Tracer, a good Genji, a good Hanzo. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. The good Zarya, But the heroes I just listed, if you really kind of don't know what you're doing and you're not too for sure, and you haven't practiced a lot, when you play them in oppositions, especially when it's like, for instance, you're playing like a Tracer on defense, or if you're playing a Genji on defense, or a Hanzo on attack, and certain little things like that, it's going to make things a lot more harder than it normally did if you just played the character for what position it's supposed to be. And I know a lot of people don't like hearing that because, hey, I paid my $40, I can play whatever the hell I want, or $60 if you spend it on console, which is the truth. You can play whatever you want. But when you start stepping into the world of team play and trying to be a team player, and if you're playing competitive or even regular player, you wonder why people get mad and they start screaming at you, it might be because of your choices and actions and what you do. Well, Debo, that's not my fault. They shouldn't be that way. This is also true. They should recognize that you can do whatever you want, but overall, it's not going to help the morale of your team, and it's not going to make things better. So unless you're really proficient with that Genji on defense, or that Hanzo on attack, Tracer on attack, or things like that, or I'm trying to think of another example. What's a good one? Or like we just said earlier in the video, a Torchborn attack. Unless you really know what you're doing, it's better just to take the simpler way out, because at least if you're trying to secure these wins in competitive, it's just easier for you to play the appropriate hero for the appropriate situation. And it will also make your team's morale a little bit simple, because like I said, when you see 2 or 3 Genjis, or you see a Genji and a Hanzo on defense, you kind of wonder what's going on, especially like you're on King's Row and you need more defenders or a builder. Unless you're really good with it, not only is that going to be detrimental to your team, they're probably going to get demoralized because they're sitting there like, dude, I'm playing for the team. I played a tank, my other buddy played a healer. We got a builder here. But the rest of 3 of our team are just straight picks that really shouldn't be on this map, because I mean, that's just how people react, and that's how things will do. So, if you're not proficient with them, you got to keep practicing and get better with them, and that just takes time, and putting in the effort to learn how to really get the most out of them. Some characters can fit on certain maps for defense, or basically flip their role out on certain maps because they have certain advantages. But you need to practice it. You need to know what you're doing. And you really got to put forth that good effort, because people will see what you're doing, and they will get demoralized and start blaming you and screaming out and going crazy. And people think, well, I shouldn't be blamed for it. Okay, even if we're not going to blame you, but you got to have some kind of common sense to the point that you know that this is going to happen. They're going to be angry because you got people who are trying their best and, getting things done. So just picking the simpler option is usually the best thing to do. The thing or the hero that's designed for what you're trying to do, like if you're attacking if you're pushing the payload, maybe a Reinhardt instead of, a Junkrat. Now, Junkrat's okay with pushing, but if you notice that your team needs a Reinhardt, put that shield on the payload, probably should take the Reinhardt, and he's a very simple character to play as compared to a Junkrat on, on attack or pushing the payload. Not that Junkrat's not good, but you kind of got to know what you're doing. Or if you're playing, let's say, McCree, and you're on King of the Hill map and you're trying to come around and flank, or you're trying to protect your you're trying to protect simply your back line from getting attacked by a tracer, and you could kind of do that playing a Winston. Winston can also flank, Winston can be on the point, and Winston can also stay next to your healer to ward off any tracers with a shield and his really easy auto tracking weapon to get him off your healer. So, if you're not doing too good to McCree, I consider he's an okay hero. He got nerfed a while back because he was really powerful killing tanks. And he's very good if you use him in the right situation and you're proficient with him. But if you're not, just take the easier, simpler hero you know how to do until you get better with McCree. Well, Debo, how am I supposed to get better with McCree if I don't play him if I don't play him in ranked? Well, I mean, yeah, you can play him competitive, but I would tell you, for the sake of your points and your sanity, is just to go ahead and play the normal, quick play, get really good with him, read what situations are good, or maybe play with a group of friends, and then once you get him down, then definitely, you're good to go. And then, you'll start climbing with him and you'll get really good with him. It'll be rewarding and you'll know when to use him, and, you'll get good and proficient with him. But sometimes just taking the easier option is what you should do. Another little subject I wanted to touch on real quick. A lot of people are starting to look at competitive play and trying to recreate them in competitive play when they don't have a full 6-man team themselves or they haven't tried anything themselves. That you could do, because like I said, you can do whatever you want in this game, right? But if your objective is to win and get things done and, progress onward, become a better player and play for the team, just because you see it in competitive doesn't mean you should do it. Now, I'm not saying that things in competitive, what they do, shouldn't be recreated. Like, very simple things, like if you see somebody running in competitive, they usually like to run like double Winston, double support, double tracer on King of the Hill. Now, if you decide just to run something vaguely close to it, like a double tank, double support, double DPS, that works out okay. But if you're playing and you see competitive and you see somebody run a Bastion on attack or assault, and you just look at, oh man, this Bastion did an amazing job, I'm going to run the same exact thing. Are you thinking about what comp they were running? Maybe they had a Reinhardt to protect them. Maybe they had a certain situation that allowed for them to be able to get a Bastion on attack, and it made it very useful because they put him in a situation and gave him coverage, or they had a team strategy that allowed it. Another example is like, the Torchborn on attack. Maybe they have a setup that allows for that. When you're looking at certain types of things, like, when they have a Widowmaker and a Hanzo on attack, it might be because those guys are very proficient with those characters, allowed to give opportunities for their teams to push ahead. And then when you try to recreate the double sniper combo and you're attacking competitive, it doesn't work. And you ask yourself, well, why doesn't it work? The reason why it doesn't work, you got to ask ourselves, am I on the same level as the competitive pro players? Did we do the correct setup? Do we have the rest of the team to, support what we're trying to do? Is everybody on the same page? We don't have the same kind of communication. Am I really playing, the map to how it's supposed to? Am I actually, playing the character like how they did? And odds are, most of the time, it's probably going to be no, or you're missing a very important point, or you're missing part of the equation is what made it successful. People did this in League of Legends, people have done this in StarCraft, and they immediately just see something without understanding the mechanics behind it and try to recreate it, and it doesn't necessarily work. Now, StarCraft's a little bit different because it's a single player, but especially inside of a group multiplayer game where you have to rely on people that you don't know, doing that is very dangerous. You should just be very careful. Like, that is just not the thing you want to do. Playing safe, within reason, knowing the maps, playing standard hero choices, unless you're proficient with them and you know what you're doing, and just making simplistic decisions on what's going on in the map, and just making the more simpler, straightforward play will not only keep your sanity up, it won't make your teammates go crazy, but overall it's the better pick. Unless, like I said before, you're playing with people you know. One last thing I wanted to talk about real quick, also having a little bit of common sense towards the whole theme of the map. If you're playing King of the Hill and you're not a Tracer or a Genji for the most part, and you're not preventing people getting to the point, you should be on the point. You should be close to the point, or you should be on there. I've seen a lot of games recently playing King of the Hills where people are just losing because they don't get to the point quick enough. They're not staying on the point. They're running wrong, doing deathmatch kind of things and attacking. And what you have to realize is that, King of the Hill is defend the point. And the reason why I say Genji or Tracer are okay to leave the point is because they can bounce back at the point at any time, but they should stay in the vicinity of it, and they're there to flank and do damage to people who are trying to push on the point, which is fine. So when you're playing those types of maps and you're asking yourself, why are we losing, or why aren't things going well, or you're focusing only on kills, that doesn't win you the game in Kingdom of the Hill. You need to be on the point. You need to prevent people from getting towards the point. You need to have the whole theme is that as long as we're doing the whole keep them off the point or disruptive thing, that's your major goal. Because unless you had the point, or unless you hold the point, you're not going to win. You're not going to get anything done, and nothing's going to get accomplished. Also, in the beginning of King of the Hill, there's about 20 seconds before the cap undoes itself. In that certain opening, you don't want to die. You're positioning for power. So what you can actually do is you could run to the point and just simply defend the point and just hold it there. Or you guys can wait on the outskirt of the point. Or, just basically, or just what I'm trying to say is just stay alive. Because in the first 20 seconds, after that point becomes active, if everybody's there, everybody's on the point, you got no problems, bam, you win the game. You're good to go. You got nothing to worry about. Everything works out very well for everybody. You're already there, and you guys can get the point. Because the first team that usually gets the point usually has a huge advantage, and you can kind of snowball that into advantage, because it usually takes a very long time before you get everybody together and you can recapture that point, especially when one or two people can delay you from capturing the point from somebody who already controls it. You want to make sure that, especially on King of the Hill maps, you're not dying in the beginning, and unless it's doing something related to the point, you don't need to do it. If you own the point and you're pushing them back to their spawn, don't do that. That's how you lose games. If you're dominate them on the point. You guys can guarantee it. You know what's going on. No one needs to be a hero. Very simple, straightforward play will get you ahead. If you're defending on payload, the biggest thing I want to say is this. Usually when you're defending, there is a huge run back from where you basically spawn at, or I'm sorry, a huge run back from where you respawn at to getting back to defending, as opposed to the attackers, which their respawn is right there. You don't want to die. Your number one thing is not dying at that defense. So you want to be very careful. You don't want to suicide and do nothing too crazy. If you have like a huge defense or choke point, usually you want to defend there. You don't want to try to defend at the respawn, because they die, you take damage, and they respawn quicker, and their run back's right there. As opposed to you, if you die, you're going to have to run all the way back. And I've seen a lot of games countlessly lost when you have certain maps that have strong first point defenses that can easily be held, whether it's New Bonnie or if it's Hollywood, Route 66, those areas can be held very easily in the first opening areas, and a couple of them, the last area too. And I guess the whole point I'm just trying to make is that in the beginning of these payload maps, if your respawn is it's going to be a very far run back, you need to value living. Living is the biggest thing. If you got a Symmetra up and she gets a teleporter up, then you can do a little bit of aggression. That's okay, because you can teleport back. But for the most part, don't die. I've seen a lot of people do that. I've seen a lot of people attack past the point where you want to hold them or be up against a respawn. Don't do it unless you know what you're doing. Unless you're like a Winston that can hop in or out. Maybe a Roadhog can do a little damage and heal. You really don't want to do that. And like I said, it's been a reoccurring theme I've been seeing, and you will totally just ruin yourself. So just keep in mind that the respawn is a very long way to get back. You want to play very safe and defend at the chokehold. That's all you need to do. And sometimes in certain situations, the chokehold where you should defend at makes the run back rate very low, or it's not that bad, or it might be in between a place where it evens things kind of out. Where okay, well, we're at this point where it's good to defend. This is like on Dorado. When you watch pro play, they don't defend or attack the first opening area, which is okay. You can in competitive, because that's all right. But a lot of the pros or competitive team will defend at the when you get to the first narrow tunnel, and there's only 2 ways to come at you from, because it's easier to defend there. And not only that, the respawn, the distance to run is not so strenuous or not so bad. You know, they can actually run back if they do happen to die and get back and help defend, and they got a little bit more leeway to work with. But don't be that guy who's out in the front who gets picked off from getting a payload. Just for the love of God, don't do that. You're going to piss off your teammates, and then you're going to feel real stupid within the first 5 seconds of the game when you're dead. Your name pops up and you're running back, and then by the time you get there, they overran the point, and then usually people's expression is, oh, what the hell, my team can't defend. Well, if you weren't out there attacking like Rambo, you would still be alive and you'd have no problems, but that's just how it does. Outside of all that, I mean, that pretty much closes out the video. Like I said, just a lot of the most common sense things and the most simplest things are the way to go. But unfortunately, with common sense things, you know, people like to, common sense is very uncommon, whether it's in games or in real life. And, you know, usually the most simplest answers or the simplest things or solutions or answers are the best way to go with solving a problem or dealing with certain things that you need to figure out what needs to be done. But like I said, usually people like to overcomplicate things. So, you know, try to have a little bit of common sense and, you know, and try to take the simpler way out for, you know, solutions to problems. And you might be surprised when things might start working a lot better for you. So, as always, I appreciate you guys watching the videos. Got another one coming out soon. And then we'll start going into hero videos. Probably going to start off with Winston and Lucio first. And then other than that, man, I hope you guys have a good day. Make sure you guys hit that like button. If you guys got any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section. And guys, always check me out on Twitch TV, www.twitch.tv/SPSDebo. I hope you guys have a good day, and I'm out.